We're here today on RealAgriculture.com. We're with Lyndsey Smith. She is the editor of Grainews. Welcome today, Lyndsey.
Hello, Sean.
Lyndsey, this has been the never-ending spring. We can't seem to put a nail in the coffin. Farmers are extremely frustrated across Western Canada, and even in some cases into Ontario. It feels cold out. It is cold out, and we are in June. What are you hearing from farmers and producers?
A lot of frustration. It's wet, it's cold, it's everybody's behind as far as certainly my area. I'm just northwest of Regina, and I look at the fields, and it looks like early May. It certainly doesn't look like early June. Even what is out there, we've got standing water all over the place. I was speaking with one producer who is about an hour away from me here, and he was saying that there are some people that haven't even turned a wheel. I know other guys who are, maybe a third done, maybe a half done, that sort of stuff. And so it's really frustrating. And I certainly guys are out there trying new stuff, trying new things, trying to, scratching canola. I know I'm originally from the Red River Valley. There's certainly been years that they kind of floated on and hope for the best. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And certainly I do still keep in touch with my friends in the valley, and some of them are doing fine. It really does seem to depend on, a couple miles one way or the other, whether you're underwater or not. So it's frustrating, and I don't know. I do hear there's a lot of talk now of talking about, crop insurance and agri-stability or case or whatever you want to call it. There's certainly those discussions are starting to happen about what we're going to do about this. So that's
and the stress that it must have on a lot of producers has got to be really taking its toll when you either can't get in the field, or to see the crop you have planted is not coming up because the seed's rotting underneath water or in very highly saturated soils. The stress is immense.
It has to be. I mean, it just, even the most optimistic, I think are really struggling and really frustrated with this. And what do you do? I mean, and even at this point, even if you can get seed in the ground, I mean, it's cold, it's wet. I mean, we're talking seedling diseases, and then we've got plants that are going to be under pressure from insects, and we've got, my hat goes off to him because it's a really, really tough spring, and to be able to kind of keep going and keep trying and keep, and I don't know, maybe at some point you just have to say that's it. We're not trying anymore, and what do we do? And maybe you start looking at fall seeded crops. I don't know.
Well, and Grainews is a very runs a lot of practical type of content that farmers can implement. It's very much similar with a lot of stuff that I produce on RealAgriculture.com. It feels like we've been talking about dealing with wet ground during seeding time forever. Like it's been 60 days of just the same issues, and it's just here we've dealt with snowstorm 1, snowstorm 2, and then a huge dump of rain. And depending on where you seeded in between those snows and rains, your crop looks different. Some got away with some things and some didn't. And when you hear calls from farmers and their seed's been sitting in the ground for 3 weeks and they're wondering what they should do, it is definitely a frustrating experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and I will say that I've certainly talked to some that lucked out, and I think at this point it kind of is luck that there certainly are some farmers who wrap things up early May and may have some fields that are going to be a little wetter than average, but if you've got a crop growing and if it got off to an early start, it can use up some of this water and those sorts of things. So I mean, there's still some, and there are certainly areas of Saskatchewan especially that needed rain desperately.
Yeah, the Swift Current area for sure.
Well, for sure, and even north of there and stuff that really did need it, and so here's hoping that there are some of those areas that this was all very welcome.
So has Manitoba kind of got off scot-free here a little bit? Who knew that the Red River Valley and the Peace River region would be the first seeded?
Yeah, I certainly know people who were done before the calendar flipped to May. I do know people that were wrapping up that first weekend. Scot-free, I don't know. Certainly, but that soil up there, that heavy, heavy clay and those sorts of things, it can take a lot of water, and if the water moves off quickly enough, not saying it's perfect, but the crop can still certainly bounce back from it. So there are those that are still optimistic that we're out. I do know of ones that were out spraying this past week, and things look, maybe a bit wet, but certainly not far below average. I mean, they're looking at a relatively average crop. So, but at the same time, it feels like it's rained every day here, and we, just northwest Regina, and we haven't even got the worst of it. So I can't, northeast Saskatchewan has just been, it's just been underwater, so I don't know. It'll be really quite interesting to see what happens, because I don't know, all the optimism in the world I don't think can really take care of all this water.
Yeah,
so.
and when we get to, when we start to talk about reseeding, one of the real issues that I think is sort of playing in people's minds is that, let's speak to canola as the example.
Yeah.
Traditionally we would be finished, let's say if you were finished your canola seeding by the 15th of May, and then you had a poor stand, traditionally a lot of times we hear with canola, go fishing for 2 weeks and come back and it'll look a lot better than you think. We don't have 2 weeks to wait, because in 2 weeks we're pressing on July 1st. And then we are starting to think about winter crops. So we're just we're kind of up against the clock here, and it's definitely difficult. And I'm sure there's a lot of agronomists and retailers trying to help their customers and trying to figure out, okay, what do you do?
Yeah, you would hope, and certainly I know there's been discussion about, do you switch out to a much shorter season canola variety? Do you just switch out of canola entirely? Do you? I mean, and at some point I think you've got to kind of draw a line and say there's nothing out there that. I mean, I guess it's risk management. I mean, if you really feel we're going to have a fall like we did last year, where it looked like everything was going to frost, and then we ended up having summer very late in the year. If you're going to gamble and say that that's what's going to happen, then I guess you keep going. But at some point, I think it's a risk management tool, and if you decide, okay, maybe June 12th is it. I'm done as of that day, and then you start looking at chem fallow or cover crops or fall seeded crops, and just something to either use up the water or keep the soil from going elsewhere, or those sorts of things. And it does. I think it becomes just whatever you figure is going to happen this fall, and if there are no options as far as trying to get something to finish off this summer, then at this point, I mean, we're almost mid-June here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we are. Everybody is definitely keeping their fingers crossed.
Yes.
And praying for warm, open fall, where we will be, sort of like last year, September. We could use that probably September and October this year.
Yeah.
Because if we have a early winter, we are not going to have a good situation. So hopefully this is the year where we do get that fall, and so that we're able to get this crop to maturity and get it off in a timely manner as best we can, and so that we can start to look towards 2011, because I think already at this point in June, farmers across the West would really like to put 2010 to bed. So Lyndsey, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Sean.